Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Half Hour. And you guys, it's the 100th episode. You are listening to the 100th episode. Can you believe it? 3 digits, baby. We've made it. And I am joined today by my business partner, co-facilitator of all of our programs here at Powers Peak Potential, and one of my best friends. Yay. Let me reintroduce you because she's been here before. But Lynae, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody.
Yes. And you guys, you're going to see a lot more of Lynae this year because we are out in the world. We are training, we are coaching, we are out doing things, and we have thoughts to share. So, in this
Ooh.
episode, being number 100, we wanted to bring to you a topic that is hot off the press. So, today's topic is going to be state before strategy. It's one of our principles from the 7 principles of trauma-informed leadership, which if you're deep in our world, you're aware of. If you're just surface level in our world, you may not have heard of that before. So we have a thing that we do. We run a webinar once a month, once every other month. Pay attention to the website and all social media and all that. You'll see when these events are if you want to see it. But we do an event called Trauma-Informed Leadership Live. And during the recording of this, so not the release of this episode, but during the recording of this episode, we just came off the coattails of that live. And Lynae, what was your overall gut feeling coming out of that? How did you feel?
I felt great. I thought we were hitting all of the things that these leaders came in to hear and that they needed to hear. It was a great event. So
Yeah.
if you missed this one, join us for our next one.
Yes. And it was so cool because leaders need a support group, kind of
Mm.
like if you an AA or some type of other support group. What I've learned is that leaders need a support group too. And what was
Yes.
really great about this webinar is that we talked about like the 10 leadership issues that we see most, and the resonance was incredible. People were like, yeah, that's me, from the chronic overer to the mission driven burnout to toxic leadership. We kind of go into it all. But one of the principles, as I was mentioning, it's principle 2 is state before strategy. What I found completely wild is that we talk about a breach to leadership like security has breaches to its data. And if you have these 2 bad actors, one is strategy first leadership, and the other one is performance tools before biology type of thing, you get hacked. And once you get hacked and your people go into burnout, you go into burnout, results start slipping. And then we see the big monster dysregulations. I always kind of like mess that up, but dysregulation. Okay. I had to joke around for a minute. But I say all that to say that we repeated over and over again that strategy first leadership was one of the breaches that causes all this stuff. And what was really wild to see is that we experienced that live on day 3. So Lynae, I'm going to pass it to you, but I wanted to ask, what was your takeaway on day 3 when we saw a whole bunch of leaders asking questions on how to handle situations when that was one of our teachings during the 3-day process? So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, it turned out to be exactly that. We saw the problem right there because everyone's coming to the floor with, hey, I have this problem and here's the scene, right? I need a quick fix, or give me a one shot answer to fix this big problem, right? And it was all about they wanted the strategy. They weren't even thinking about the state. They were definitely just like strategy, strategy, strategy. And we're like, were you listening the past couple days? Because that is not the way to go about it. That's not going to get you the result that you're looking for. And there's absolutely no quick answers or quick fixes to any of these problems. So we saw that in live time, that one of the issues leaders are facing, they're always thinking about, I just need a strategy.
Right. That is absolutely right. And one of the reasons that the strategy doesn't work, and what we taught about in that, is that you have to apply state before strategy. And so, what do we mean when we talk state before strategy? Well, I think the basic thing, right? I'm saying right before I say it, but I'm like, I know you're going to pick up what I'm putting down, is that you can't out strategize a nervous system. And so
Mhm.
I'm going to give that back to you, like just a comment off of. I think that was a huge aha that did come up during the live event.
Yeah, because when you say it like that and you explain more around it, it just makes sense. You can't strategize your way out of, if I say this one thing, it's going to fix that person's state. It's going to change everything, because it's not. It's absolutely not. So it's just very interesting to see how everybody's approach, and that it's very much the same. No one's considering the person and the state that they're in and approaching it from that way before they're going into a strategy to deal. So then it ends up being a miss.
It does. And I think we might need to give the audience some more color. And I'm gonna throw this to you, but I know you're gonna enjoy talking about it. At least I think you will. Can you tell them about the bear?
The bear. Well, it's that scene, right? When you're walking through the woods and you're feeling the sun on your face and you're just in this tranquil state and you're feeling good. And then all of a sudden you hear something, you hear a little rustle. And then all of a sudden you turn around and there's a bear. It completely changes your whole state, right? It's like I went from calm, cool, collected to panic, freeze, and getting leaders to understand that they're the bear. And the
Mhm.
scene with their employees, with in an office situation, you're the bear. You send them an email, hey, I need to talk to you. Very innocent, right? And it might be, but all of a sudden you're the bear. They're like, what's going on? What did I do? Am I in trouble? They're overthinking everything. It instantly puts them into a completely different state, even though your intentions might have been completely innocent or good, but you become the bear. Start an instant meeting. How are they going to react? They're going to be froze. They're going to be defensive. I don't know which way they're going to react, but you're the bear.
Wow. I just like, I love when we talk about the bear, but just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, it's true. As
Mm-hmm.
leaders, we're the freaking bear.
Yeah.
And that, my friends, my fellow listeners,
Mm.
is I don't know what I was going to say the sad truth, but it's just the truth
It's the
because
truth.
we have good intentions as leaders, as parents, as like whatever leadership role we're
Yeah.
playing. But as soon as we approach someone and it might feel in any way, shape, or form corrective, the nervous system is going to go into what we refer to as the four F's or the survival states. So it's not like, I don't know that we coined it the four F's, but that's what I like to call it. like, but that's flight, fight, freeze, or fawn.
Mm-hmm.
And what we spend a lot of time talking to leaders about is that if you really slow down to recognize these patterns, these states, you're going to notice that you're not going to be effective because let me just give you an example. And like Lynae's my boss. No, she comes up to me and I say, and I am like, Becca, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh no, what is this going to be about? I'm just kidding. We have great meetings. Um, but I could be going into there like, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about today and just feel a little nervous, even though we're great, but I still feel a little nervous. And then she says something that's like, hey, we really need to work on your keynotes and removing language and okays and I guesses because she's my boss. She tells me what I need to do. And then all of a sudden I'm like freezing because I'm like, oh my God, I have to take this feedback. I know it's going to make me better. And then she realizes that I am no longer in a state to receive feedback because I am
Touchdown.
frozen and I'm panicking. So we use humor to regulate ourselves. But I'm using this silly example, which has happened in real life, to show that even in strong relationships where there's a lot of trust built, depending on the topic, even
Mm-hmm.
you could go into a survival state. And if I'm in a freeze state and we need to work on big business things, it's not going to work. She can
Mm-hmm.
use all the strategy in the world and all the tactics in the world. But if I'm not in a space to receive what I need to receive to improve or grow or whatever, she's not going to get the result that she wants, no matter how hard she tries or how good her intentions are.
Yep.
So this is one of the reasons we see leaders burn out and their teams too, but we saw a lot of leadership burnout in the lives that we just got done with. And one of the reasons was because they're constantly trying a strategy first leadership approach and they're getting exhausted because they're
Because
just
they're like, we're trying. I have tried everything. I gave them more tools. I gave them positive feedback. I tried, to boost morale and all of the things that, again, good intentions and you think are going to help things. But because you're doing that strategy before you're assessing the state of where everything's at, it's all for nothing. And so then the leader ends up getting burnt out and frustrated. And what else could I do? Like, I'm trying so hard, but it's because you're not stopping. You're not thinking about how you need to approach this. And it's sad that it continues to be a pattern that isn't acknowledged and then broken.
Mhm. That is such a good point because when you're mentioning that it's not an acknowledged pattern, that frustration then turns into finger pointing, kind of.
Mhm.
In this example that I'm giving, if Lynae's coming to me for coaching on my keynotes and I'm not in a place to receive, she could walk away with a narrative saying, like, Becca doesn't value my opinion.
Mhm. She doesn't
Becca's
want
not
to change. She doesn't want to learn. She doesn't want to grow. Obviously, she's not that invested. If she can't just take feedback from someone who she knows cares about her and is coming to her and would never insult her, this is all positive feedback. It's just she needs to change and grow. Yeah, that could be all of my intentions, but because of the state that it puts her in, that's not how it's going to be taken.
right. That was such a good example too, because that's exactly some of the frustration points that were shared in the live is that the problem employee. So
Mm-hmm.
you can see we
Yep.
kind of bounce around these issues, but one of the issues that came up was the problem employee. And when we started to peel it back, we learned that the employee wasn't in a good state. And then also, how many leaders? So let's talk about this. I'm going to shift the gears and just ask a question for a second. How many leaders admitted that they weren't in a good state themselves?
Almost all of them. They were
Right?
they
Like,
were checking the boxes of where am I at on the pyramid of unpotential. Okay, well, they were like, I checked all those boxes. Well, then what state are you in to be able to deal with these employees and these issues and these different scenarios? You're probably not in the best state yourself to deal with them, let alone the state that you're finding the other person in. And they were
that's
like, oh,
like,
yeah. Whoa, okay, okay. So then that once that awareness is there, hopefully you'll do a pivot and a shift and break the pattern. But just sometimes bringing the awareness is so key because people are like, I didn't even think about it like that.
yes, exactly. And that's so kind of why we wanted to come on this episode, being
Yeah.
number 100, and
Awareness.
woo,
Aware-
and talk about state before strategy because it's just a cool concept to think
Yeah.
about. It's something right now as a listener, you could be like, oh, am I the bear to somebody? Am I getting a shutdown response? Not because they're an asshole, but because maybe they're just not in a good spot. And just maybe if I could help get them regulated, which we teach in all of our programs, we could get the response
Yeah.
that they want and that I want. Like it creates state before strategy is like the win-win tool out there. It's not even
Well, it's
a
the
tool.
starting point too. Because again, you can't move forward on any of these strategies or in any of these scenarios until you handle that part, right? It's got to
Bingo.
be your starting point. So, just to bring the awareness to the starting point can completely shift everything. And that was the point. That's why we brought it up in this training as such a key thing to bring insight into because that awareness has to be brought first. Then
100%.
you can move forward.
Yeah, because again, I opened up the episode saying this, but you can't out strategize a nervous system.
No.
Like, and it's the missing piece to leadership. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me more because I know we geek out on this stuff, but tell me more. What is your 2 cents of now that we've been doing leadership training and obvious for a while and we have our corporate backgrounds, we've both been leaders within corporate America for years. What do you see as a benefit to incorporating the nervous system into all the traditional training that misses it?
I think it's completely the game changer. It changes everything.
Right.
Not only in leadership, you would say in business, right? But just the way you handle people in general, in your life, in your everyday life. If you walk into every space with, I can fix this, or I'm going to handle this, or coming in with all good intentions, but you're not ever bringing forward any of this, I'm looking at you as a person. I want to see where you're at. I want to handle you in a certain way or handling yourself in a certain way. You
Yes.
can't really be successful on the level that you need to be. And none of traditional leadership covers any of that. I had never even heard of that. I have been through so much leadership training. I have been in leadership since I was young. No one ever even mentioned those words or talked to me about that. Or what do they say? People first, right? People
Hmm.
first. What does that really mean? Well, okay, you can put all of this mumbo jumbo around it, but if you're not really thinking about people first and thinking about the nervous system and regulation and all of that, then you're not considering people first, not even a little bit.
Oh, that was a mic drop right there. That's
It's
so
not.
good because it's so true.
So
Oh
that's
my
where the
God.
miss is for traditional leadership models, the way we've all been taught, the way we're still trying to power through everything, not considering ourselves, our own regulation, our own systems, let alone anybody else's. What is the end result going to be? It's only burnout can be the only end result to that approach.
And the truth is, and we saw it all up and down the comments, is that the powering through, you guys have heard my origin story a million times. I burnt out, fell to the bathroom floor, rose, all that. So I'm not going to get into the whole story this time. But what I want to share is that so many leaders had that similar story
Oh, yeah.
from the powering through. And the unfortunate part, and we saw it all up in the chat, is that there was a lot of people struggling with autoimmune disease
Yeah.
in that from the
Because
powering
what is
through.
stress? They always say stress is a killer. Well, stress attacks your body. It attacks your mind, all of it. Well, autoimmune, what it's breaking down your body. It's attacking itself because you're not being kind to your system at all.
No,
You're
no.
completely not thinking about yourself and your whole nervous system. So, if you start doing that, you can start healing yourself. When you start being kind to yourself, when you start being kind to other people's nervous systems in the way that you're handling them, that can start bringing success. That can start bringing a state of healing and a new way of being. But if you continue this old way, just know your end result is always going to be burnout for you and your people.
Yeah, there's going to be a cost to the powering through. Eventually, you're going to collapse. Somehow or some way, there's going to be a collapse, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual collapse, too. We talked a lot about hopes and where people wanted to go. And it was crazy to see how many leaders are purpose driven, are mission driven.
Mhm.
I would say almost all of them
Almost
surveyed
all of
came
them,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, they believe, I mean, you lead for a reason, right? Because you want to help people, you want to make things better. You think you're in a role of influence, and we are as leaders, but that was coming at a cost. And so, this concept of state before strategy, just really like piggybacking off what Lynae was talking about, was one of the concepts that like blew people's mind because it was more about pausing than pushing
Mhm.
through. It
Yeah.
was more about collaborating than telling or
Yep.
advising. It was about seeing and rather than doing. Like there's this about being is probably about being more than doing. And so it's just something I think for you listeners to consider. Have you ever thought about checking your state before taking an action? Have you thought about someone else's state while you're giving feedback and
Mm.
why it might not be landing? Hmm.
You know what was a really eye-opening thing, Beck, is that the people that did schedule an alignment call with me, right, to talk further about our offers and programs and stuff, they get on the call and I am prepared to talk about them, where they're at, what's going on with them, what do they need. And just the people that came on those calls, getting that experience of being, asking the right questions, giving
Mm.
them a safe place, letting them know I'm here to help them, hearing what they had to say and then repeating it back to them in a very clear way that I heard you. I understand. Almost every single person that was on those call was so mind blown just by that part of our call because they're not used to that. They're not
Yeah,
used
I got the
to
goosebumps as you say it.
being approached like that or someone having a conversation like that with them. They're like, wow, okay. Yeah, you heard me. I feel seen. Okay. It changed the whole conversation. It changed the way they felt. And
Mhm.
just the, like, not excitement, but like kind of relief that they
Yeah.
had that experience was, I don't know, it made me really emotional because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not something that they ever get to experience. And the
Yeah.
fact that it's so shocking and impactful to have a 30-minute conversation where they feel seen and heard, and that's just sad. That's how they feel. And that's
Yeah.
the state they're coming in. And they're coming into this conversation because they want to be a better leader, because they want change. They want to lead their people better. They're in a service. A lot of them are service-based organizations. And so they want us lead so they can all serve the people that, they serve better. But it just takes so much and it seems so impossible, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's pretty
And
simple.
you brought a really good point because as we're talking about state before strategy, you mentioned a really important piece to this is that you showed up in a state of active listening
Mhm.
and you showed up in a state of support. You knew what role you were going to be in. You did not show up in a flustered state, which
Yeah. I think a
through
lot of
your
them thought
story.
they were on a sales call. So they were like, okay, I'm just going to come in and,
Yeah.
ask my, so they came in that state of, okay, I think I know how this is going to go. I didn't show up in that state. And then the whole conversation shifted.
Yes. And then they felt heard and seen. That's what I wanted to bring this conversation back to, guys. When someone feels heard and seen, their survival mechanism gets shut down, and now they're coming out of dysregulation into regulation. And that is where they can make change. That is where they can collaborate. That is where they can be creative. That is where they can innovate. That is where they can drive big results. And
Mhm.
so that was awesome because through your storytelling, I'm like, yes, that's it. So now these leaders are coming in kind of in a state of like needing help. And in that example, you were able to set a state for them where they felt heard and seen so they can be in growth mode, which is what they need
Yes.
to be in to make these changes. And so we can take that story and apply it to your guys' life, your teams, your family, whatever. I mean, if you can help by considering state before strategy and you can help the person that you're interacting with feel heard and seen, you're going to help regulate their nervous system and you're going to put them in a state of receiving. And then you can do some badass strategy.
Yeah. Then you get into that all day and it's going to
Hmm.
go the right direction. You're going to get the
Heck
results
yeah.
that you're actually looking for.
Heck yeah. So, any last thoughts around state before strategy that we haven't hit that might be like a nice little nug for the listeners to take away?
I don't know, in the sense of basically trying to apply it. That's
Yes.
the biggest thing is try to apply it. Understand, be aware of who you are in the situation, right? You're the bear.
The bear.
And approach things differently. Stop, assess the state, assess yours, assess the other person's, and then you can ask powerful questions. You can get each other in a regulated state, then you can move to strategy. It's just about awareness. I feel like that's the biggest thing to take away is be aware, and then you can make some change.
That's beautiful. And I think on that note, I don't really have anything that I want to add. So we can wrap it up. Listeners, thank you for being with us for 100 episodes.
Yay!
I
That's
know, I'm so
so
excited.
awesome. I can't believe it's been 100 episodes. This is amazing.
Yeah, me either. So wild. Don't ever forget, guys, that you can do anything you set your mind to.
That's
At
right.
some point, this podcast was so crazy and so big for the two of us to take on, both from a recording standpoint and an operational standpoint. How are we going to do this? What are we going to talk about? Like, oh, the ideas were everywhere. And then 100 episodes later, here we are. We have a global top 10% podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
And sometimes, as Lynae and I like to say, you just need to follow your beautiful unfolding
Yes.
and see what
Yes.
comes out of it. So, all right. Well, guys, until next time.
Till next time. Bye.